The morning my law license was suspended, my wife sat 12 feet away from me and explained why I belonged in prison. Octavia Crane did not cry. She did not hesitate. She did not even look tired. She sat straight behind the witness table, wearing the navy suit she used whenever she wanted a jury to believe she was the only honest person in the room. The evidence indicates that my husband accessed restricted federal materials, she said. He then used those materials to interfere with an active investigation. One of the disciplinary panel members leaned forward. Mrs. Crane, are you saying Mr. Reed attempted to influence a witness? Octavia paused just long enough to make the answer feel painful. Yes. A camera clicked behind me. My attorney, Howard Ellis, placed one hand on my sleeve. Don't react, he whispered. Across the aisle, Finn Archer lowered his head. His mouth tightened, but not from shame. He was hiding a smile. 3 weeks earlier, he had been sitting at my dining table, drinking my bourbon and calling me sir. Now he was watching my career die. Octavia folded her hands. I love my husband, she continued, raising her voice for the reporters. But no marriage is more important than the integrity of the justice system. I finally looked at her. She met my eyes without blinking. That was the moment I understood she had not come to testify against me. She had come to perform my execution. At the time, I thought losing my license was the worst thing Octavia Crane could do to me. 10 months later, I would watch a federal judge ask how many years she deserved in prison. But that morning, she was still Atlanta's goddess of justice, and I was only her disgraced husband. 3 weeks earlier, Finn Archer had been in my kitchen when I first realized how far Octavia was willing to go for him. He was 27, 6 years out of college, and still technically an intern in the Violent Crimes Division of the United States Attorney's Office. He dressed like a man who expected cameras to arrive without warning. That night, he sat in my chair at the head of the table. Octavia stood beside him, reading through a draft motion. Finn held a legal pad against his knee. If the defense attacks the witness's credibility, Octavia said, don't defend the witness. Attack the reason the defense needs him discredited. Finn wrote every word down. He looked up at her with open admiration. That's brilliant. It's basic trial strategy. No. He shook his head. It's how you control the story. I set 3 plates on the table. Dinner's getting cold. Finn did not move from my chair. Octavia glanced at me. We're almost finished. You said that 40 minutes ago. Finn closed the file. I can leave. He made no attempt to stand. Octavia touched his shoulder. You're fine. Then she looked at me. Malcolm, sit over there. She pointed to the chair beside the kitchen counter. I stared at her. That's my seat. Finn gave an embarrassed laugh. I really don't mind moving. Then move, I said. Octavia's face hardened. Don't be childish. Finn finally stood. He lifted both hands as if calming an unreasonable client. Seriously, Mr. Reed, it's not a big deal. I stepped closer. You're right. It shouldn't be. His smile faded. Octavia closed the file with a sharp slap. Finn is helping me prepare for a federal gun trafficking trial. We have opening statements next month, and that requires him to eat here 4 nights a week. He works hard. So do I. She gave me a tired look. No one said you didn't. Finn collected his papers, but Octavia stopped him again. Sit down. Malcolm is in a mood. I laughed once. A mood? You've been hostile since Finn joined the office. Finn has been in my home more often than my brother. That's because your brother doesn't work for me. Finn lowered his gaze, pretending to be uncomfortable. Octavia saw humility. I saw calculation. He had learned exactly when to speak, when to look wounded, and when to let her defend him. The next morning, I discovered what else he had learned from her. I represented a mechanic named Darius Cole in a federal firearms case. The government claimed Darius had delivered 3 unregistered weapons to a gang associate outside a convenience store in College Park. The Discovery Index listed surveillance footage from the store. The actual video was missing. I called the assistant prosecutor assigned to the case. Your index lists security footage from 12:14 a.m. I said. There was a pause. That footage was deemed irrelevant. By whom? Finn Archer reviewed it. I leaned back in my chair. Send it. I'll have to check with Ms. Crane's team. You don't need permission to disclose evidence favorable to the defense. I didn't say it was favorable. You haven't even watched it, have you? She hung up. I drove to the convenience store that afternoon. The owner remembered the federal agents collecting a copy, but he still had the original recording on a backup drive. The footage showed Darius arriving at 12:19. The government's witness claimed the gun transfer happened at 12:14. 5 minutes before my client entered the parking lot. More importantly, a second camera showed the government's cooperating witness carrying the bag of weapons before Darius arrived. I watched the video twice. Then I called Octavia. "Where's Finn?" "I'm working." "Where is he?" Her voice cooled. "Malcolm, what happened?" "He buried surveillance footage in the cold case." Silence. "I'll look into it." "I already did. Tell him not to leave." I reached the federal building 20 minutes later. Finn was standing beside Octavia's desk when I entered her office. His face had lost its usual confidence. Octavia closed the door behind me. "You cannot storm into a federal office," she said. "Did you review the convenience store video?" Finn swallowed. "I reviewed several clips." "Did you see Darius arrive after the alleged gun transfer?" "I saw a timestamp issue." "A timestamp issue?" He adjusted his tie. "The cameras weren't synchronized. The government's witness had the weapons before my client arrived." Finn glanced at Octavia. "It wasn't clear what was in the bag, so you decided the defense didn't need to see it?" "I made a judgment call." I turned to Octavia. "Your intern withheld exculpatory evidence." She crossed her arms. "Lower your voice. He may have put an innocent man in federal prison. No one is going to prison because of one video. We will review it. You should report him." Finn went pale. Octavia immediately stepped between us. "He made an inexperienced decision. He concealed evidence. He is 27 years old. So I am not destroying a promising young attorney's career because he mishandled one piece of discovery." Finn's eyes dropped. Octavia placed a hand against his arm. "That small movement told me everything. You said here. You've prosecuted people younger than him. That is different. You've asked judges to ruin lives over one bad decision. Do not compare Finn to the defendants you represent." "Why not? Because he wears a suit? Because he tells you you're brilliant?" Her jaw tightened. "Enough. No. If your name weren't attached to this case, you call what he did obstruction." Finn's fear disappeared. For the first time, he looked directly at me. "You don't understand the pressure inside this office." I took one step toward him. "I understand disclosure law." Octavia raised her hand. "Malcolm, stop. You're protecting him. I am correcting a mistake without sacrificing a young man's future." "And what about Darius's future? He is a repeat offender. He is my client. He is not innocent just because you found one useful video." I stared at my wife. She had already decided what Darius was. The evidence was only supposed to support the decision. I remembered another case, another report. Another young man Octavia had declared guilty before every question was answered. Leon Briggs. 10 years earlier, I had noticed inconsistencies in the ballistics report used to send him to death row. I had warned Octavia. She told me a jury had spoken. I had accepted that answer because I loved her. This time, I did not. "I'm reporting the violation," I said. Octavia's expression became still. "You will do no such thing. I already notified the court that evidence was withheld." Finn looked at her. "Octavia." She did not take her eyes off me. "You filed something?" "An emergency discovery motion." Her voice dropped. "You should withdraw it." "No." "Malcolm, listen to me carefully. You are dealing with an active federal prosecution. You have access to information through me that other defense attorneys do not." I almost laughed. "Are you threatening to accuse me of using your access?" "I'm warning you that appearances matter." "Then discipline Finn and disclose the video." She stepped close enough that I could see anger tighten the skin around her eyes. "Withdraw the motion." "No." For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Octavia nodded once. Not in agreement. Indecision. "Fine," she said. "Do what you think you have to do." 5 days later, 2 federal agents entered my office with a warrant. They seized my computers, client files, and phone. A witness in one of Octavia's investigations claimed I had pressured him to change his testimony. The state bar received emails showing that I had sent confidential federal information to an alleged gang intermediary. I had never written those emails, but they carried my signature block. They mentioned my clients. They quoted private conversations I had only had with my wife. When I confronted Octavia at home, she was packing a suitcase. "Tell them the emails are fake," I said. She folded a blouse without looking at me. "The forensic review will determine that. You know how I write. I know how you used to write." "Used to?" She placed the blouse in the suitcase. "People behave differently when they are desperate." I grabbed the lid before she could close it. "You gave them information." She looked at my hand. "Move." "Did you help Finn manufacture those emails?" Her eyes finally met mine. "You sound paranoid. My firm is collapsing. That is not my fault." My clients are leaving because your office called me a criminal. You made this public when you filed that motion. Finn buried evidence. And you tried to turn one mistake into a scandal. She removed her wedding ring. For one stupid second, I expected her to put it in the jewelry case. Instead, she placed it on the kitchen counter. I'm moving out. I stared at the ring. For Finn, her face twisted with disgust. This is why people believe you're jealous. People? The press already knows you resented my success. My hands slowly fell from the suitcase. You spoke to the press. I answered questions. You fed them a story. I protected my office. You protected him. She closed the suitcase. You should focus on protecting yourself. 2 weeks later, the disciplinary panel suspended my license. By then, half my clients had terminated their contracts. 3 attorneys left my firm. My landlord sent a notice demanding overdue rent. Finn appeared beside Octavia in a nationally televised racketeering case. The networks introduced him as her gifted young protege. After the hearing, reporters surrounded me outside the courthouse. Mr. Reed, did you leak federal evidence because you were angry about your wife's relationship with Finn Archer? Were you threatened by his success? Did you pressure a witness? I pushed through them without answering. That night, I sat alone in my office and opened printed copies of the forged emails. I stopped trying to read the accusations. Instead, I studied the formatting. One date had been manually changed, but the document code still carried the original creation sequence. The footer sat 3 pixels too low. A hidden field had failed to update. I had seen that mistake before. I opened an old storage box and found the file I had avoided for nearly a decade. State of Georgia versus Leon Briggs. The evidence handling report had the same altered date, the same broken footer, the same hidden field. At the bottom of the report was a receipt acknowledgement. Octavia Crane. I drove to the prison the next morning. Leon entered the visitation room with chains around his wrists. He picked up the phone and studied me through the glass. You're her husband, he said. Not for much longer. His mouth pulled into a humorless smile. So she finally did something to you. I said nothing. Leon leaned closer. Tell me something, counselor. Why did it take your wife destroying your life before you cared whether she destroyed mine? I looked at the man Octavia had built her empire on. For the first time in 10 years, I had no answer. Leon Briggs kept the phone pressed to his ear and waited for me to answer. Why did it take your wife destroying your life before you cared whether she destroyed mine? The chains around his wrists scraped against the metal counter when he leaned forward. I could have told him I was young when Octavia prosecuted his case. I could have said I never worked for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, never interviewed a witness, and never stood before the jury that sentenced him to death. Every word would have been true. None of it would have answered his question, because I was a coward. I said. Leon's expression did not change. I saw problems in the ballistics report. I asked Octavia about them. She told me the jury had heard the evidence and reached a verdict. And that was enough for you? No. But you acted like it was. Yes. He sat back. You married her after that. I did. You watched her sell books about my conviction. Yes. You went to those award dinners? The question struck harder than the others. I remembered standing beside Octavia while a police foundation gave her a crystal statue. Officer Daniel Whitaker's widow had hugged her. Reporters had called Leon a cop killer, and I had stayed silent because admitting uncertainty would have damaged my wife. I went. I said. Leon gave a bitter laugh. So now she frames you. And suddenly you believe prosecutors can lie. I know the documents used against me were fabricated. Whoever created them used the same process that altered an evidence report in your case. That's supposed to make me trust you? No. What do you want, then? Permission to investigate. You don't need my permission. People have been investigating me for 10 years. Law students write papers. Reporters make podcasts. Lawyers promise my mother they found something, then disappear when the cameras leave. I'm not asking you to believe a promise. Good. Because I don't. I opened the copy of the evidence handling report and held it against the glass. Do you remember your lawyer challenging this document? Leon glanced at it. Mr. Talbot said the dates didn't make sense. Why? The police claimed they tested my gun before they logged it into the lab. That was the defect I remembered. The firearm had supposedly arrived at the state crime laboratory on March 18th. Yet the revised ballistics report referred to comparison testing performed on March 16th. Did your lawyer receive earlier drafts of the report? I asked. No. The prosecutor said there was only one final report. Octavia said that? Leon's eyes narrowed. She said it in court. I took out my notebook. Who handled the ballistics work? A woman named Porter. Dr. Lena Porter. Did she testify? She said my gun couldn't be excluded. Was she confident? Leon's jaw tightened. She looked at Octavia before every answer. A guard tapped the door behind him. Leon ignored it. You find something real, he said. You take it to Avery Sloan. Your appellate attorney? She's the only lawyer I trust. My license is suspended. I heard. I can still investigate. Leon gave me a flat look. You can do whatever you want. But don't come back here, because you need forgiveness. I don't. Yes, you do. The guard opened the door. Leon stood. You want to help me? He said. Bring me the truth. Keep your apology. Avery Sloan's office belonged to an organization called the Southern Justice Initiative. When I arrived the next morning, she made me wait 40 minutes. She was in her early 40s, with close-cropped hair and the expression of someone who had spent years listening to powerful people explain why rules did not apply to them. She did not offer me coffee. You represented Darius Cole, she said. Yes, and after you accused Finn Archer of suppressing evidence. Your wife's office accused you of federal crimes. That is the sequence. Now you believe Leon's case was corrupt. I believe the ballistics report was questionable 10 years ago. Avery's eyes sharpened. And you did what? Nothing. Then why should I trust you now? You shouldn't. She leaned back. At least you learned one useful answer. I placed the forged emails and Leon's evidence report on her desk. The emails used to suspend my license contain a manually altered date field. The underlying metadata was never corrected. This evidence report has the same defect. Avery compared the pages. You think Finn created both? Finn was 17 when Leon was convicted. So no. I think he learned the method from Octavia's office. Avery tapped the report. This could be a coincidence. Then help me prove it is. I already represent Leon. And I know Octavia. Avery's mouth tightened. You thought you knew her. That may be more useful. She studied me for several seconds. If this is a divorce strategy, I will bury you before Octavia gets the chance. It isn't. If you leak anything to the media, you're done. I'm not interested in the media. That would make you the first person connected to Octavia Crane who isn't. She picked up the report. Find Lena Porter. I'll request the archived laboratory file. Dr. Lena Porter had retired 6 years earlier. Her professional address led to an empty office, and the phone number in the state directory had been disconnected. I found her through a property record in DeKalb County. When she opened her front door, she recognized my name before I introduced myself. You're Octavia Crane's husband, Malcolm Reed. I know who you are. She started to close the door. I put one hand against it. Leon Briggs may receive an execution date. Her face changed, only for a second. Then she pushed harder. You need to leave. Was your original report different from the report used at trial? I don't discuss old cases. Did Leon's gun match the bullet that killed Officer Whitaker? I testified under oath. You testified that the gun could not be excluded. That was the laboratory's conclusion. Was it your conclusion? Her grip tightened on the door. Mr. Reed, your wife already ruined your career. Don't give her a reason to ruin what's left of my life. The words stopped me. You're afraid of her. Lena looked past me toward the street. I was afraid of the entire office. I lowered my voice, then talked to Avery Sloan. Not me. She can protect the statement. No one protected me the first time. What happened the first time? Lena's mouth trembled. She released the door and stepped back. My initial comparison found inconsistent land-and-groove impressions. The fatal bullet did not match the test rounds from Leon Briggs's pistol. Could it still have come from his gun? Anything is possible when the evidence is damaged. But scientifically, it was not a match. What did the original report say? The submitted firearm is eliminated as the source. I felt my pulse rise. The report at trial said the firearm could not be excluded. Yes. Who changed it? I did. Why? Lena folded her arms against herself. Octavia called the laboratory 3 times. Then she came in with Detective Branson. She said the bullet was deformed, and my conclusion went beyond what the evidence supported. Did it? No. What exactly did she ask you to write? Lena looked at me. She didn't ask. She put a revised paragraph on my desk. I took out my phone. Will you repeat that in a sworn statement? Her eyes filled, but her voice turned angry. You think I haven't lived with this? Every time her book came out, every time she stood on television talking about courage, I knew what I had done. Then help us correct it. And when they say I changed the report because your wife pressured me, they probably will. I could lose my pension. Leon may lose his life. She flinched. I hated using the words, but Leon had spent 10 years paying for everyone else's fear. Lena wiped her face. Bring Ms. Sloan tomorrow. Avery obtained the laboratory archive 2 days later. The first draft was exactly where Lena said it would be, eliminated as source. A later version replaced the sentence with, "The submitted firearm cannot be excluded." The revision history contained comments from an external user identified only by initials. OC. Avery stared at the screen. This is enough for a discovery claim. Not enough to prove she knowingly convicted an innocent man. No, she said, but it proves she knew the jury heard a distorted conclusion. We moved to the jailhouse informant. Calvin Moss had testified that Leon confessed while they shared a holding unit. Public records showed Calvin's 15-year sentence was reduced to 6 months after the trial. He now managed a used car lot outside Macon. When I asked about Leon, Calvin's smile disappeared. I told the truth in court. Then you won't mind answering questions. I got nothing to say. I placed a copy of his sentence modification on the hood of a sedan. Your sentence disappeared 11 days after Leon's conviction. My lawyer negotiated. You also received $25,000 from a confidential witness fund. His hand froze on the car keys. That record was sealed. Not anymore. Calvin looked toward the office. You're trying to get me killed. Did Leon confess? Yes. What did he say? I testified to it. Say it again. Calvin's eyes shifted. He said he shot the cop. What kind of gun? A 9mm. Leon had been convicted with a .40 caliber pistol. Calvin saw the answer on my face. I stepped closer. Who gave you the details? No one. Detective Branson? He opened the car door. I blocked it. Octavia knew about the deal. Didn't she? Calvin shoved my shoulder. Get away from me. She put you on the stand knowing you were lying. His face twisted. You think she cared? She told me to look at the jury when I said Leon showed no remorse. She practiced the answer with me until I stopped sounding nervous. Avery, waiting in my car, had recorded the conversation. By the end of the week, we had the hidden payment request, the sentence agreement, and a detective's handwritten preparation notes. One name appeared repeatedly in the discarded investigative material. Marcus Bell. Bell had been a confidential informant for a joint gang task force. Officer Whitaker had handled him. On the night of the murder, Bell disappeared from police supervision for almost 3 hours. The next morning, the task force moved him to another county. Why protect him? I asked Avery. She pointed to a report marked restricted. Because Bell was feeding them information on a weapons pipeline. Arresting him would have exposed the operation. And Leon? Leon had an old possession arrest. No political connections. And a gun police could put in front of a jury. We requested every file associated with Bell. Most had been destroyed under routine retention rules. One video remained because it had been misfiled under a different operation number. A patrol officer's body camera had recorded Bell arguing with Officer Whitaker 1 hour before the shooting. Bell jabbed a finger into Whitaker's chest. You burn me, he said, and I'll put you in the ground before sunrise. He pulled back his jacket. A pistol sat at his waist. Avery paused the frame. The weapon had the same squared slide and aftermarket grip described by the medical examiner's firearms consultant. There's your alternate suspect, she said. At the end of the digital file, an access log listed every person who reviewed the footage before Leon's trial. Detective Branson, District Attorney Raymond Keller, Assistant District Attorney Octavia Crane. Her electronic signature appeared beside a date 3 weeks before opening statements. I stared at it until Avery closed the laptop. She saw it. I said, yes. She knew another man threatened Whitaker with a compatible gun. Yes. And she told the jury there was no other suspect. Avery's phone rang. She answered, listen, then stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. What happened? I asked. She ended the call and looked at me. The Attorney General filed a motion requesting an execution warrant. How long? If the court grants it, the state can set a date within weeks. I looked at Octavia's signature on the screen. For 10 years, she had treated Leon Briggs as the foundation of her career. Now the state was preparing to kill him before we could tear that foundation open. Avery filed the emergency petition at 8:17 on Monday morning. By noon, Octavia knew everything. She walked into my office without knocking. The receptionist's desk was empty. I had let Dana go 2 days earlier because I could no longer cover payroll. Half the furniture had been tagged for removal by the leasing company. Octavia glanced at the empty workstations. You've made your point, she said. I stayed behind my desk. What point is that? That you're willing to burn down your own life to embarrass me. I closed the file in front of me. Leon Briggs is facing execution. And you think that gives you the right to steal sealed evidence? We obtained the records through court-authorized requests. Her mouth tightened. A suspended lawyer working through a non-profit attorney is still a suspended lawyer. You didn't come here to discuss my license. She placed her handbag on the chair, but did not sit. You filed laboratory drafts, witness payment records, and restricted task force footage. Yes. Do you understand what happens if that material becomes public? Leon gets a hearing. Hundreds of defendants challenge their convictions. Every confidential informant connected to that task force is exposed. Gang cases collapse. Officers become targets. And you lose your reputation. Her eyes hardened. This is bigger than my reputation. Then answer one question. I turned my laptop toward her and paused the body camera footage on Marcus Bell's gun. Did you watch this before Leon's trial? Octavia looked at the screen for less than a second. That footage proves an argument. Nothing else. It was not a denial. I leaned forward. The access log has your signature. I reviewed thousands of files. This man threatened Officer Whitaker 1 hour before Whitaker was murdered. Confidential informants make threats. It's how they survive. He showed Whitaker a gun consistent with the murder weapon. Consistent is not identical. Leon's gun was eliminated by the original ballistics report. She inhaled through her nose. That conclusion was scientifically irresponsible. According to you? According to the final report. The report you rewrote. Her hand flattened against my desk. I clarified ambiguous language. You changed eliminated to cannot be excluded. Because the bullet was damaged. Lena Porter says you placed the replacement paragraph on her desk. She is protecting herself. Calvin Moss says you rehearsed false testimony with him. He is a convicted liar. He received money and a reduced sentence. Those benefits were managed by investigators and never disclosed to the defense. Octavia straightened. Leon Briggs was not some innocent college student walking home from church. He carried an illegal firearm. He associated with gang members. He fled when officers tried to question him. So that made it acceptable to frame him? I did not frame anyone. Did Leon kill Officer Whitaker? She stared at me. I waited. Her fingers slowly curled against the desk. You're asking the wrong question. I felt something inside me go cold. There is only one question. No. There are consequences beyond one defendant. Did he do it? She looked toward the hallway before lowering her voice. You have no idea what was at stake. A man's life. An undercover operation that had taken 18 months to build. 27 pending indictments. A district attorney trying to keep the city from exploding after a beloved officer was murdered. And Keller's election. Her eyes flickered. I had found the weak point. Raymond Keller was 6 weeks from the primary. I said, his numbers were collapsing. Then you convicted a cop killer. Be careful. You gave him a victory speech. He gave you a promotion. I earned everything I received. You earned it by putting Leon on death row. She stepped around the desk. You think you understand the pressure because you defend people after the decisions have already been made. You walk into court and criticize everyone else. You never have to decide which danger matters more. That is not prosecution. That is choosing a sacrifice. Sometimes public safety requires choices. Did Leon kill him? She stopped inches from me. I am not discussing a pending matter. I almost laughed. You've spent 10 years discussing it on television. Her face tightened. You will withdraw the petition. No, I'm not asking. Neither am I. She picked up her handbag. If you continue, investigators may discover additional communications connecting you to criminal organizations. I stood. Are you threatening to manufacture more evidence? I'm warning you that digital records are complicated. I reached into my pocket and stopped the recorder on my phone. Octavia saw the movement. Her gaze dropped to my hand. You recorded me? You taught me evidence matters more than belief. For the first time since she entered, her confidence cracked. Only for a moment. Then she smiled. You didn't get what you think you got. We'll let investigators decide. She walked to the door, then turned. Malcolm, when this is over, Leon will still be guilty. Your firm will still be gone. And you will still be the bitter man who destroyed his marriage because he couldn't live in his wife's shadow. I held her gaze. When this is over, you may finally understand the difference between a shadow and a grave. She left without answering. Avery listened to the recording twice. It's not a confession, she said. She threatened me. She was careful. She admitted the task force and Keller's election mattered. She implied it. I rubbed both hands over my face. So we still don't have enough. We have enough for a hearing. Maybe enough for a stay. Maybe doesn't help Leon. No, Avery said. But panic makes people careless. Octavia panicked that afternoon. We learned later that she called Finn into a secure conference room and handed him a list of electronic archives from the Briggs case. At the time, I only knew Finn had stopped appearing beside her on television. 3 days after Octavia came to my office, a digital forensics consultant hired by my disciplinary attorney found the first direct link between Finn and the emails used against me. The original template had been created on a workstation assigned to Octavia's federal trial team. Finn's login credentials opened the file 14 times. Octavia's administrative account approved the final export. Howard Ellis spread the report across my desk. This clears you, I said. It helps you. Finn created the emails. Yes. And Octavia approved the file. Her office will say you stole her password. I stared at him. She's still trying to blame me? She doesn't need the accusation to survive forever. She only needs it to survive until Leon's execution. That night, Finn appeared at my office. He wore the same charcoal suit he had worn during my disciplinary hearing, but the collar was open and one sleeve was wrinkled. He looked like he had slept in his car. I did not invite him inside. What do you want? Finn glanced down the hallway. To talk. Call my lawyer. I can't. Then call yours. He put one hand against the door before I could close it. She's going to blame me for everything. I looked at his hand. Move it, please. Did you say please when you forged the emails? His face tightened. She told me you were threatening the office. So you framed me? She said we needed to establish a pattern before you leaked anything else. You submitted fake evidence to the bar. I created drafts. You attached my signature. She approved them. You knew they were false. Finn looked away. That's not why I came. I stepped back and let him enter. He stopped when he saw the empty desks. You really lost everyone. You sound disappointed. I didn't know it would go this far. You accused a criminal defense attorney of leaking evidence to a gang. How far did you think it would go? Finn opened his mouth, then closed it. I pointed toward a chair. Talk. He sat but kept both hands locked together. Octavia ordered me to delete electronic files from the Briggs case. What files? Internal memos, scanned disclosure logs, archived emails. Did you delete them? Some. I stepped toward him. His shoulders jerked back. You destroyed evidence while a death row petition was pending? I stopped when I saw the affidavit. What affidavit? Finn reached into his jacket and removed a folded document. It stated that he had independently fabricated the emails against me after I threatened him. It also claimed he had altered old state prosecution records without Octavia's knowledge while researching her career. The signature line was blank. She wants you to confess. I said. She said signing it would protect the office. It protects her. I know that now. I dropped the document onto the desk. You thought you were special. His face flushed. She told me I had instincts most lawyers never develop. She told you what kept you obedient. Finn stood. You think this is about an affair. I think you were willing to ruin me because she made you feel chosen. She believed in me. No. She used you. He shook his head hard. You don't know what she said when we worked alone. I know what she says when she needs someone to cross a line. Finn's eyes narrowed. You let her do it for years. The words landed. He saw that and pressed harder. You attended her speeches. You smiled beside her. You benefited from her name. I did. So don't act like you're better than me. I'm not asking for immunity. His face went pale again. I need you to arrange a deal. I can't practice law. You know Avery Sloan. You know the investigators. I will not bargain for you. I can prove Octavia ordered the deletions. Then preserve the evidence and tell the truth. She'll destroy me. You helped her destroy me. I was following her instructions. I walked to the door and opened it. So were the lab technicians. So was Calvin Moss. So were the detectives who hid Marcus Bell. Finn did not move. I could give you more. Give it to investigators. What if they charge me? They should. He stared at me with a mixture of anger and fear. Then he left. The next morning, Finn attended a meeting with Octavia wearing a recording device provided by his attorney. I did not know that until 2 days later, when Avery called me into her office. 2 investigators were waiting beside her. One of them placed headphones on the table. Mr. Reed, he said, you need to hear this. Finn's voice came first. What exactly do you want deleted? Octavia answered without hesitation. Every internal file predating the final disclosure index. What about the body camera log? Remove the local copy. The task force archive is already under seal. Finn paused. What if Briggs is innocent? Silence followed. When Octavia answered, her tone was almost bored. He may be. My hand tightened around the headphones. Finn spoke again. Then why are we fighting the petition? Because innocence is not the only interest the justice system protects. He's on death row. That conviction created everything we have today. My position, this office's credibility, Keller's administration. Cases across the state rely on the belief that we acted properly. Finn's voice shook. So one man's life matters less? One death row inmate's life cannot outweigh the credibility of an entire institution. The recording continued. Octavia told Finn to sign the affidavit. When he refused, she reminded him that the fabricated emails, deleted files, and discovery violations were all connected to his login. I gave you opportunities no one else would have given you. She said, do not confuse that with permission to become disloyal. Finn asked what would happen if he went to investigators. Octavia laughed softly. You are an intern who falsified evidence. I am a federal prosecutor with 20 years of public trust. Which one of us do you think they will believe? The investigators stopped the recording. For several seconds, no one spoke. Avery looked at me. That is the confession. Federal agents executed a search warrant on Octavia's office that evening. They recovered deleted correspondence from the Briggs case, confidential payment records, and training notes in which Octavia instructed young prosecutors to avoid creating discoverable uncertainty. The media learned about the search before midnight. Octavia was scheduled to appear the next morning in the nationally televised racketeering trial that had been designed to introduce Finn as her successor. Instead, the network cut away from the courthouse. A reporter stood outside the federal building and announced that Atlanta's goddess of justice was under investigation for concealing evidence in the case that made her famous. But Leon was not safe. The Georgia Supreme Court had not yet ruled on our emergency petition. The execution warrant had been granted, and the state scheduled Leon's death for Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. At 5:42 that evening, Avery and I waited beside a silent phone. Leon had already been moved to the execution holding unit. At 6:10, the court requested another copy of the original laboratory draft. At 6:31, Avery called the clerk. No decision. At 6:47, my phone rang. It was Leon. His voice was steady. They gave me my last meal. I could not answer. You still there, counselor? Yes. My mother thinks the court will stop it. We submitted everything. That's not what I asked. I closed my eyes. I don't know. Leon breathed slowly into the phone. At least that's honest. Leon, if they do it, don't let Octavia call me a tragedy. Don't let her say the system failed. People made choices. Use their names. You're not dying tonight. You can't promise that. No. Avery's phone rang. She grabbed it. Her face changed as she listened. I stood so fast my chair fell backward. What? She raised one finger. Still listening. Then she ended the call. The court granted the stay. I stared at her. Say it again. Leon is alive. My legs almost gave out. I lifted the phone. Leon. The court stopped it. He said nothing. Leon? I heard him inhale. Then a sound escaped him that was half laugh, half sob. A guard spoke in the background. Leon returned to the phone. This isn't over. No. I said. It's finally started. Across Atlanta, television screens showed Octavia leaving the federal building without her title. Her staff, or Finn beside her, for the first time in 10 years. The cameras were not waiting for her to explain why someone else was guilty. They were waiting to ask whether she was. Leon Briggs walked into the evidentiary hearing wearing an orange prison uniform and walked out of it without a death sentence. The process took 4 days. The damage had taken 10 years. Dr. Lena Porter testified first. She kept both hands around a paper cup while the state's attorney questioned her. Did your original report eliminate Mr. Briggs's firearm as the source of the fatal bullet? Yes. Why was that conclusion changed? Lena looked toward Octavia. Octavia sat behind her defense attorneys. No longer wearing the prosecutor's badge, she used to clip inside her jacket. Her face remained calm, but one finger tapped against the table. Ms. Crane told me the wording was unacceptable. Lena said, did she provide replacement language? Yes. What did it say? That Mr. Briggs's gun could not be excluded. Was that scientifically accurate? Lena swallowed. No. Octavia's attorney rose. Objection. The witness is speculating about Ms. Crane's intent. The judge shook his head. She is testifying about her own scientific conclusion. Overruled. Octavia stopped tapping her finger. Calvin Moss testified the next day. He admitted that Leon had never confessed to him. Detective Branson had supplied details from the crime. While Octavia rehearsed his testimony before trial, Calvin shifted in the witness chair and avoided looking at Leon. She told me to look at the jury, he said. She said people believe remorse when they can see the person describing it. Avery stood. Did the prosecution promise you anything? A reduced sentence. Anything else? Money. Relocation assistance. Were those benefits disclosed to Leon Briggs's defense attorney? No. Did Octavia Crane know about them? Calvin's shoulders dropped. She approved them. Leon sat beside Avery without moving. I watched him when the body camera footage played. Marcus Bell shoved Officer Whitaker against a vehicle and displayed the handgun at his waist. You burn me, and I'll put you in the ground before sunrise. The courtroom remained silent after the video ended. The prosecutor assigned to defend the conviction requested a recess. He returned 20 minutes later with two supervisors from the Georgia Attorney General's office. One of them stood before the judge. Your Honor, the state can no longer represent that the conviction in this matter is reliable. Leon closed his eyes. Avery placed one hand on his shoulder. The judge looked over his glasses. Is the state withdrawing its opposition to the petition? Yes. And the death sentence? Yes. Your Honor, the judge vacated the conviction and ordered a complete review of whether the state intended to retry Leon. Reporters rushed from the courtroom before the judge finished speaking. Octavia stayed seated. When Leon turned toward her, she finally looked at him. He did not shout. He did not curse her. He only asked one question. You knew? Octavia's attorneys immediately moved between them. She rose, buttoned her jacket, and walked away without answering. 3 weeks later, the new Fulton County District Attorney announced that every charge against Leon Briggs had been dismissed. Marcus Bell was dead. The murder weapon had never been recovered. The original police investigation had been contaminated beyond repair. But the evidence against Leon had not merely become weak. It had been manufactured. I waited outside the prison with Avery and Leon's mother. Mrs. Briggs gripped Avery's hands so tightly that both their knuckles turned white. When the gate opened, Leon stepped through carrying a cardboard box. 10 years of his life fit inside it. His mother reached him first. She pressed both hands to his face, sobbing his name over and over. Leon held her without speaking. His eyes stayed open, fixed on nothing. Reporters called questions from behind a barricade. Leon, do you forgive Octavia Crane? Will you sue the state? What do you want to say to Officer Whitaker's family? Leon pulled away from his mother and faced them. I did not kill Daniel Whitaker, he said. His family deserved the truth too. The people who hid it failed all of us. Then he saw me. For a moment, neither of us moved. I approached him slowly. I should have acted 10 years ago, I said. His expression remained hard. You should have. I saw enough to ask questions. I let her answer them for me. You don't get credit for seeing the truth late. I know. Leon looked at the box in his hands. Then he held out his right hand. But you came back for it. I shook it. That did not make us friends. It did not erase my silence. It was simply the first honest thing either of us had been given in a long time. My disciplinary hearing reopened the following month. This time, Octavia was not seated across from me as a witness. She had invoked her Fifth Amendment rights. Finn took her place. He wore a plain gray suit and looked 10 years older than he had when he smiled at my suspension. Did Malcolm Reed create the emails submitted to the State Bar? The panel chair asked. No. Who created them? I did. A murmur moved through the room. Finn's attorney touched his arm, but Finn continued. I used a template from Ms. Crane's office. She approved the language and the final export. Why? Finn stared down at the table. To make Mr. Reed appear compromised before he could report our discovery violations. The panel chair removed his glasses. So the allegations against Mr. Reed were fabricated? Yes. Howard placed a hand on my shoulder. The panel formally dismissed every charge. My law license was restored, and the federal investigation into me was closed. Outside, the same reporters who had called me jealous now asked whether I felt vindicated. No, I said. A license can be restored. 10 years cannot. Finn pleaded guilty to falsifying records, obstructing justice, and destroying evidence. His cooperation reduced his sentence, but it did not save his career. At his plea hearing, the judge asked why he had followed Octavia's instructions. Finn glanced toward me before answering. I thought she chose me because I was talented. His voice cracked. She never loved me. She loved being worshipped. She needed someone young enough to believe that doing her dirty work was the same thing as serving justice. Octavia called him a liar through her attorneys. Then investigators recovered messages in which she praised him for being loyal enough to understand that results mattered more than procedure. Her publisher canceled her contract. Her speaking tour disappeared. Universities removed her name from lecture halls and scholarship programs. The Police Foundation took back the award I once watched her accept beside Officer Whitaker's widow. Then the other cases began reopening. Junior prosecutors described meetings where Octavia warned them not to document uncertainty. One former assistant testified that Octavia had told him, "A defense lawyer cannot demand evidence you were smart enough not to create." Federal prosecutors charged her with obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, perjury, conspiracy, and willful deprivation of Leon's civil rights. For the first time, Octavia Crane entered a courtroom through the defendant's door. During the trial, she blamed Detective Branson, Raymond Keller, Lena Porter, Calvin Moss, Finn, and finally me. Her attorney told the jury that Octavia had spent her life protecting Atlanta from violent criminals. One disputed prosecution, he said, cannot erase 20 years of public service. The government played Finn's recording. Octavia's voice filled the courtroom. One death row inmate's life cannot outweigh the credibility of an entire institution. Several jurors looked directly at Leon. Octavia did not. The jury convicted her on every major count. Before sentencing, Octavia requested 5 minutes with me in a secure interview room. A glass partition separated us. She wore a jail uniform instead of one of her tailored suits. Without cameras, makeup, or assistants, she looked smaller than I remembered, but her voice remained sharp. "I prosecuted murderers," she said, "traffickers, gang leaders, men who terrorized entire neighborhoods. I said nothing. I protected people you will never meet. I gave victims a voice when everyone else was afraid. You also silenced one." Her jaw tightened. One case, one innocent man, one mistake should not erase everything I accomplished. You still think it was a mistake? What would you call it? A decision. She leaned closer to the glass. You destroyed our marriage to prove a point. You destroyed it when you framed me. I was protecting the office. You were protecting Finn. I was protecting work that mattered. You destroyed me for an intern willing to lie for you. I said, but I exposed the case that created you. Her nostrils flared. You enjoyed this. No. You wanted to see me humiliated. I wanted Leon alive. She looked away. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. Did you ever love me? I loved the woman I thought believed the truth mattered. Her eyes returned to mine. And now, I don't know if she ever existed. A guard opened the door behind her. Octavia stood. I placed my hand against the glass. Your empire didn't collapse because of one error. It collapsed because the foundation was a living man you expected everyone to treat like a body. For the first time, she had no answer prepared. The judge sentenced her to 24 years in federal prison. I did not celebrate. I went back to my office. There were fewer desks now, fewer clients, and no framed photographs of Octavia. I rebuilt the firm with Avery as outside counsel on wrongful conviction cases. Leon began working with a nonprofit that helped people leaving long-term incarceration. He refused every television producer who wanted him to appear beside Octavia's old book cover. Months later, I attended his compensation hearing. A reporter asked him whether money could repay 10 years on death row. Leon shook his head. Money can help me live tomorrow. It cannot return yesterday. As I left the courthouse, I noticed a copy of Octavia's memoir in a trash can. Her photograph appeared beneath the title. Justice has no favorites. I left it there. Octavia once told me that a verdict became the truth once 12 people believed it. Leon taught me otherwise. A lie does not become justice because a prosecutor repeats it, a jury accepts it, or a nation applauds it. It only becomes harder to uncover. And sometimes, the man who finally digs it up loses everything first, right before the people who buried it lose even more.